Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good versus Good podcast, the inaugural podcast. Today, I have a person who I've known since high school. His name is Chris, and I'm very appreciative of him that he is my first guest on my podcast. He's pretty much the perfect person for this podcast because one, he's an atheist, and two, we are civil towards each other. We always seem to find a way to be civil, no matter what our beliefs are and our opinions, whether we politely agree or disagree, or we just avoid the topics altogether. And this is what I'd like to illustrate or to advertise about this podcast. Is that it's all about finding the common ground. Common ground is common good. And that's what I want to do today with Chris. And I want to show people that it's possible. Chris and I, you may not know this, but we're probably orders of magnitude apart for when it comes to, for instance, God or politics. Like those are the two the biggest things you could that are the most divisive topics possible on our planet. And yet Chris and I remain good friends, and it's always fun, topical conversation. So I want to put that to the test with this podcast, and then maybe in future may invite others onto the podcast that are similar or along the same ideas. So Chris, thanks for joining me on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Great. Thanks for having me here, John.
Cool. So what I have for you, Chris, is a portion of my website. You're looking at my website right now.
Correct.
It's a section of the site that's called The Simulation of Progress. So in my mind of things, there are three simulations that are occurring and overlapping at any given time. This could be in the mind. This could be how far you want to take it. But let's say this is within the mind. Three simulations. The simulation of doubt, the simulation of progress, the simulation of coincidence. So we're looking at the simulation of progress because this is on the other side of the spectrum. So when I wrote these articles, I actually became an atheist for about 3 weeks, like fully fledged atheist. For the sole purposes, I wanted to experience this for myself. What my, I don't want to say adversary, but what my counterpart sees. I wanted to know. I dared to know why we disagree so much. So that's what I did. And believe me, it was pretty scary for me because, I've extreme beliefs, right? And you steer those extreme beliefs in the opposite fashion, it takes you to a place where, I don't know, it's like to one day believing in God and then believing there's absolutely no, I am God. That's the conclusion I came to as an atheist. I am God. I am the God of my own mind and my own thoughts and what I see and perceive. There is no God but me. That was my takeaway from it, and it was a thought that scared me so much it scared me straight back into God. So what I did was I've created kind of like I've created sort of an outline of how the simulations work. There's diagrams and such, so it's not terribly complicated. And below that are about maybe a dozen articles. And what we're going to do is each podcast, you're going to read an article. And by the end, and we'll see, and I might add to it as you give me ideas, right? You're like this. You gave me an idea for an article a couple days ago, and I added it to the list. So as you work your way down, I might be adding articles as you go, and we'll see where you end up by the end of it. Right. See where I end up by the end of it. So how about we scroll down?
All right.
And you want to hold it to there? Okay, so
Hmm.
I'm gonna disconnect now, and then I will when it's time for me to intervene, I will. But essentially, this is just you interpreting my words.
All right, very good. I guess we should probably just mention the elephant in the room real quick. Is like right now, my neighbors are hired some arborists to cut down the tree inside their backyard, and outside my house, there's this big, gigantic wood chipper, and it's making a ton of noise. And I'm really sorry if it's picking up on this. So if that's you're hearing any of that, that's what you're hearing. So I apologize to anyone who might be listening. So yeah. So with that said, let's move on here. Uh, Coincidence, which appears to be the middle of a Venn diagram between doubt and progress. This is actually kind of confusing as a Venn diagram because we have the coincidence sort of inside doubt and progress, but also not in between them. So coincidence is like say doubt and progress do not overlap, but coincidence overlaps over all three. So yeah, I'll be interested to figure out that a little bit more. On the left, you have the simulation of doubt. On the right, you have the simulation of progress. Coincidence shakes one's position on God, for or against. All right. Thoughts are illegal. Thoughts are not illegal. Okay, so the right is progress, the left is doubt. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. Progress aims to convince doubt that thoughts are not illegal. Doubt aims to convince progress that thoughts are illegal. So I guess if we're progressing, we are engaged in free thought, or we would give the idea that we are allowed to think about anything that we want. And us doubting, or if we doubt things, or we doubt our own ideas or our own thoughts, then we think of them as being like something we shouldn't explore, or something that is not allowed to do, because we doubt what we might be thinking about. I guess that's what we're talking about here. There are no coincidences. Limits are imaginary. Right? When doubt interacts with coincidence, it shakes one's position on God, for or against. Hence the response, there are no coincidences. When progress interacts with coincidence, it shakes one's position on God, for or against. Hence the response, God is an imaginary limit. Doubt believes stealing is theft if the gullible give. Progress believes stealing is not theft if the gullible gives. Okay, yeah. So basically, there's always, I guess, sort of random things that happen. And depending on where we sort of stand, we either it's either because of it's God's will for happening it, or it just or it's all part of sort of the plan. There's no coincidences. This is like everything is meant to be the way it is. Like everything is already sort of planned in advance type of deal. So depending if it's with God or against God. So everything happens for a reason. That's the expression I was looking for. So there's no coincidences with that. So yeah, okay. I hope I'm making sense. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. I'm still trying to figure things out, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, this is a trust me, this is very complex. It looks
Hmm.
simple, but you'd have to read all my books and my website and
Yeah.
to have a shot at like understanding this the way I do. So
Hmm.
don't think to yourself that you're not doing a good job. This I'm
It's not
putting
so much that. It's just like I feel like I'm blabbering a lot because I'm trying to think and talk at the same
no,
time. So I'll just
that's no, that's exactly you have to think out
yeah,
loud. You have to think out loud.
exactly, exactly. Okay, so Dad believes stealing is theft if the gullibles give. Progress believes stealing is not theft if the gullible give. So yeah, okay, we'll see. We'll move on here. Mutual insanity. So that is this. Oh, so now the Venn diagrams are crossing. Okay. Marriage between doubt and progress. The truth is briefly. What's the truth? The culture of certainty divides us with reckless ignorance. Doubt's ignorance censors progress truth. Progress's ignorance censors doubt's truth. Okay, so the culture of certainty divides us with reckless ignorance. Yeah, we have talked about this before in the past, and I understand what you're saying here. It's almost like the hubris of the human spirit, where we believe that we are correct. We have our points of view, and we are right, and everyone else is wrong. So if we're very certain about our beliefs or what we believe in, we would then separate from others who feel otherwise, almost with reckless ignorance, where we don't even consider the point of view of other people. So the culture of certainty certainly does divide lots of people. It basically creates an us and versus them, the right way of thinking versus the wrong way of thinking. Doubt's ignorance censors progress's truth. Ignorance censors doubt's truth. Yeah, because then we don't treat their opinions respectfully or with any kind of seriousness. So it definitely blocks sort of the truth of someone else's point of view. Okay, here's another Venn diagram. Cool. All right. Articles below are about around 500 words.
There's something just above that.
Oh, I actually looked at that. We are God out of focus. All right, so it's like an eye, I guess. We are God out of focus. So basically, I guess the whole idea of that we are God ourselves, but you just can't really see it, so it's hard to sort of see, I guess.
So I'll say this. So this, you see the two circles there? Mm-hmm. That will never occur.
I see.
We will never see God in focus because it's the diagrams, they've aligned.
Mm-hmm.
What you will see is above.
Yeah.
You'll see in different positions, the flow in and out of each other.
Mm-hmm.
That will always be us. It will never. What would make the realization that God is real, it's impossible, and it's because of this. Because the culture of certainty divides. Basically, everyone would have to believe in God at the same time. That's that's how impossible it is.
Yeah, or I guess the opposite as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. It's just like it sounds. I'm outside of my belief bubble. The question is, do I want to go back in? Can I go back? Does belief have a limit? Curiosity certainly tests our limits. Belief is scrutiny. It's an eggshell. Don't live in a shell if you're afraid of the dark. Belief is an eggshell. Do you see the majesty? Yeah. Do you see the majesty? I can't say that word.
Majesty.
Majesty. Sorry. Do you see the majesty? Okay. We'll edit that out. Belief is an eggshell. Do you see the majesty? Intelligence is a curious field of study. All right. So these are the links here.
These are all the links.
Sorry?
No, yeah, those are all are all the articles below.
Yes.
And what I'd like to do, and I do want to caution you. I do want to caution you because if you've read anything of mine, you'll know that I am severely honest. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm correct, but at least you know where you stand with me, and there's no fluff.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is, will our common ground be tested to the point where we cannot remain civil? Can we overcome can we overcome what I believe to be a severe interpretation of reality that I perceive, written as articles, to be consumed by you or anyone else who wishes to know. It will truly test the common ground that keeps us friends. So at any point, you can stop. You know, it's not worth it. Like, this podcast is not worth our friendship. But I just want you to know that, because I forget, right? I forget. It's like, I forgot leading up to. It's like, shit. I think I've written some. I forget what I write until now. So at any point you feel like, you know what, I had enough, then just stop it, and that'll be the end of the podcast.
Right, no problem.
So let's start with the first one. Temptation is sensible.
Okay. Here we go. All right. No phones allowed. Okay. The color purple is sensible like temptation. If you were not sensible, conducting your faith within a bubble will fail to resist temptation, risking your health in pursuit of heaven. Boring is God's way of saying, I resent. Is that the difference? Boredom reminds us God can't be. Boredom is like a flame. It flickers. It never rests. Life without temptation is boring. Temptation can be sensible. Color purple is sensible like temptation. If you are not sensible, conduct your faith with a bubble will fail to resist temptation, risking your health in pursuit of heaven. Boring is God's way of saying, I resent. God can't be. Boredom is like a flame. It flickers, it never rests. So basically, again, like for different ideas. If you were not sensible, conducting your faith within a bubble, you will fail to resist temptation. Yeah, because we all have temptations, and if we sort of stick to, resisting those, then I guess life can be kind of boring, and it's very sensible to sort of have these temptations of going against sort of like the odd thoughts that we have. I guess that's what you're trying to say there. I'm starved myself for 3 days, only water and coffee. It was boring. The only reason I wanted to eat was because my mind was bored. Yeah, a lot of people do that. They sit around and they want something to do, and then you feel a little something in your stomach. Oh, okay, I guess I'll eat. By the morning of the 4th day, my guts started to hurt in a particular way, so I halted the experiment. My body let me down. What was the punishment? Temptation. Eating teaches us that food, so the punishment is soothing. There is incentive to repeat the pattern. Temptation is clever. It pulls you out of the fire only to drown you in water. Okay. What was the punishment? Temptation. So we're punishing ourselves for breaking your fast, or was that the punishment of resisting temptation? What got you the pains in your guts?
What happens? When you eat too much? What do you feel?
Oh yes, yeah. You feel bloated. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
You feel regret.
Mm-hmm.
And food soothes that regret. That's the cycle. Well, I'll just eat more. Well, I regret it. Well, I'll just eat more, and I'll get rid of the regret. Yeah, I feel better. Oh, regret.
Yeah.
So that's what that's meant to illustrate.
Absolutely, because also, like, especially if you don't eat for 3 days, and then your instinct is try to eat as much as you can, and then of course your body, absolutely. So then you feel bad. It saves you from boredom through addiction. Addiction is sensible if it'll save your life. Temptation saved my life briefly. John is greater than hunger is boring.
No. Scroll down.
Oh,
It's a,
I
it's
see.
a, it's like a script.
I sorry. I read that like later then. Okay. All right. Okay, so it's okay. So let me hear. It saves you from boarding, from addiction is sensible if it'll save your life. Yeah, temptation saved my life briefly. Yes, because it's okay. Yeah, because of course you have to eat, otherwise you're not going to be able to survive. Hunger is boring. Never doubt the wrath of a bruised ego. The culture of certainty divides us with reckless ignorance. You cannot divide obedience equally because we have to coexist with temptation. God, you should have no thoughts are illegal. Child trafficking is a distraction from something worse. Privacy is privilege. Thoughts are illegal. Food is uplifting. We have to coexist with temptation. Entertainment is everything. People who are afraid to make mistakes never learn from them. We have to coexist with temptation. No one wanted me. Temptation wants optimism at all costs. Humans are designed to consume. Faith is a bubble with the simulation of doubt. That's why the bubble never bursts. I train you to become sensible. How? Do you have the will to starve? Yes. Is that sensible? The temptation to be perfect is abstinence. When your without goes too far, temptation becomes a sensible option. You make temptation sensible by comparison with your abstinence. Raise a little hell. You are not perfect. Abstinence is the temptation to be perfect. I saved your life. You were not sensible. Temptation has a positive. It is sensible to indulge if it will save your life. The will to starve is not sensible. That's why you were so tempting. I feel right to need you.
It felt right.
It felt right to need you. It felt right to be needed. All right. There's a lot of choices here.
Just go from left to right.
Yeah. Authentic, courageous, compassionate, original, beautiful, creative, funny, helpful. I agree. I like this. Thanks. No thanks. I don't like this. I disagree. Not helpful. Not funny. Uninspired. Repulsive. Superficial. Pitiful. Cowardly. Deceitful. Idiotic. So we have basically a whole range. It goes from like awesome to the worst, I guess. All right. Interesting. Okay, cool. So I have to like go through this again in order for me really to give it a proper thought. Okay, cool. So hunger is boring. So this is where the temptation comes in. Okay, so yeah. You cannot divide obedience equally because we have to coexist with temptation. Temptation is always there. Okay. I'm not sure why you brought this up here. I guess it's saying that these are your thoughts, I guess, and you're trying to distract yourself from your temptation to eat in your fast.
And what I'm trying to illustrate there is that that type of horrific situation likes to be highlighted by media and en masse, but that's only to disguise what is even worse than that. Because it's worse because everyone does it, but no one is either are unaware of it or, well, let's put it this way: no one's majority of people are unaware of it, and they'll crucify people. They'll crucify people where it's highlighted on. I'm getting into the weeds discussing this, but it's just meant to say that there's things that are deeper than this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about the most I could say.
Yeah. All right. Privacy is a privilege. Food is uplifting. So please eat something. Eat something. We have to coexist with our. You always have to live with all these tempting thoughts. Entertainment is everything, meaning that we just cannot be bored. We must start to eat something or do something to occupy my mind. Yeah. No one wanted me. Temptation wants optimism at all costs. Yeah, we always want to think better thoughts. We always want to think that it's always going to get better. It's our, again, it's part of our temptation to always be optimistic, I guess, to think better about the future. Humans are designed to consume, meaning we have to eat. That's what we got to do. Faith is a bubble with the simulation of doubt. Faith is a bubble within the simulation of doubt. That's why the bubble never bursts. I train you to become sensible. How? Do you have the will to starve? Yes. Is that sensible? The temptation to be perfect is abstinence. So again, like the temptation again is to eat, is to consume, is to occupy ourselves, but it's not sensible necessarily to do that. The temptation to be perfect is abstinence. So we have to try to avoid the temptation in order to complete our perfection. When your will to do goes without goes too far, temptation becomes a sensible option. You make temptation sensible by comparison with your abstinence. So yeah, so it's sensible to go into a temptation to eat when you are, when you're hungry, when you feel that definite, urge to consume. You're not perfect. Abstinence is a temptation to be perfect. So again, we're trying to be perfect by abstaining from all of our temptations. Don't even have a little bit of it.
You know what? And you know what that is?
What?
Impossible.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I saved your life. You're not sensible. Temptation has a positive. It is sensible to indulge if it will save your life. Yes, so of course we have to go into our urge to eat in order to continue going. The will to starve is not sensible. Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. Awesome. It's so how would I rate this? I don't know if I would go as far as genius. Compassionate. Original. It's definitely not down here. I'm definitely not going to do that because I definitely do enjoy the whole banter and the whole idea of it. It definitely is not in the bottom category here. I'm trying to think which one of these words. You kind of have it for it's like a ranking where it's like this is like the best, and then it gets progressively like not as good. Like if there's how many numbers are here? There's 24. It's like a scale from 1 to 24. I don't think I want to subscribe to that. I think it's just what one goes here the most. I'm leaning towards creative. Because it's something that I think it's very sort of easy to understand, but it's a very creative way of sort of explaining this whole idea of trying to resist temptation or living into our temptations, and how sometimes our temptations are good, I guess. So I don't know. I'm leaning towards creative.
Okay, well, vote.
All right, that's what I'm doing.
Hey, I'm on the board.
We got one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
So
A
that's
lot of options. There'll be a lot of ones across the board here.
yeah, for
That's
sure.
yeah.
Uh, with it's funny because I said I completely forget what I write half the time,
Hmm.
and I'm probably gonna have to reread these just because I wasn't expecting questions. Anyways, um, no, this one was interesting because of the fast that I did. It really taught me. I tell you, I really do think temptation is sensible because the only reason why I think people are designed to eat is through boredom. I think boredom is the mechanism that enlists temptation for you to eat. It's not temptation. It's the boredom because I can tell you if I've been in a place where I had no interest to eat at all, none. The temptation wasn't there, and when it was just something I could learn from,
Hmm.
and it's a place I'm trying to get. I'm actually starting today. Going to try and do another fast. It's hard to do. It's hard to get into, but once you're in, you're like,
Hmm.
it's like nothing. You're just bored. But it's like I'm fine. I guess I could drink some water or something, or have a coffee. But that's that, and I try and talk with myself, trying to be the entity that is temptation and myself, as if my like Q from Star Trek, like
Hmm.
he pulled that out of my head, and then Q represented my temptation, and we talk back and forth, right, where no one is gaining ground on the other, so it's this volley back and forth, and at the end, you kind of just find this common ground. 'Cause if you scroll up to the end of the no to the what you read,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
so so that's why you were so tempting. It felt right to need you,
Hmm.
and it felt right to be needed, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of like that's the best way I could explain the relationship between us and temptation, is that the strive to be perfect is an addiction and it's impossible, and that's what my research is about, is how to achieve the impossible. We never achieve it, but it's somehow in some way we're inspired to do it, but we never stick around to see the consequences of that because we're not interested, because
Hmm.
that sullies the the hopes and dreams of those who wish to repeat or exceed those of the people they worship, or they admire, or they praise. So it's um, so temptation is it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's nuanced. It's very nuanced, and I've proven, this proves that temptation can actually save your life, as it did mine.
Hmm. Yeah. So like, so you said that it is like boredom that compels us to want to eat. Like that's like you said that, correct? And that's the
Yep.
way. That's one thing you're saying. Yeah. So like, how does that explain for like? Is that pretty much the whole goal of the mouse that's constantly scurrying for food? It's just that's the way to occupy their minds. Like the mouse can't just sit there because he'll be bored. And he has to have something to do. Is always, I guess, like to cure the boredom. Is that sort of the idea? I guess even amongst animals,
We're
because it's
not
not because we're animals as well, right? So.
I know, but we're not fit to be content with what we
Hmm.
have. We're since since young we are trained to crave, and our cravings be validated with encouragement because it's cute,
Hmm.
because it's parents or relatives they enjoy. They live vicariously through your youth, and they want, it's like a quarter in an arcade, another quarter, another quarter, another quarter.
Hmm.
Give him another piece of cake. Give him another piece of cake. Give him another piece of cake. Yeah, see how happy he is. It's the same shit.
Yeah,
It's
the next toy or this new gizmo or gadget. Yeah.
it's uh it's the mind. It's all in the mind. If
Yeah.
the we could survive on much less. Like I'm a fucking bum the way I live. Right?
Hmm.
I don't move. I don't even perspire. I sit. I'll lie down. So
Mhm.
I probably burn like maybe 600 calories, but I'll consume 3,000. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There comes a point where it has nothing to do with survival. It has nothing to do with survival in terms
Hmm.
of physically. Is there the survival then switches to how do I escape? How do I escape the thoughts I'm having? How do I escape this boredom? Because boredom leads to thoughts I don't want to have. I gotta eat, play video games. I gotta watch TV. I gotta jerk off. You know, like it's whatever it is to, you know, you got to come to a point where they're not going away, and it's only gonna grow. So that means the the abuse the abuse to others and the abuse to yourself in the form of addiction is only going to increase. Just like I said, how people want to achieve the impossible. People are morbidly obese because they think they're going to solve their problems by eating.
Hmm.
It's impossible, right? And I'm going to achieve the impossible. Like Babe Ruth, he's gonna fucking. That's what they're thinking. I'm gonna achieve the impossible. They're not, but they're not conscious of it. But that's what they're doing. This is you're eating. Your behavior is as of someone who's trying to cure obesity by eating. It's,
Yeah, it makes you feel better. Like it definitely adds to that comfort, you know?
so it's all flooding back to me. I haven't thought about this in a while. But like, does it is in terms of in context of you when it comes to temptation? Um, would you say that it's something that you deal with in terms of the day to day?
Well, yeah, because the whole, eat while you're bored thing is actually like for real. It's a thing, you know? Like I used to be like a lot heavier than I am now. And part of it was, again, just having access to having certain things in the house, food in the house, and that temptation to eat that, you know? So I'm at the point now where I pretty much do the grocery shopping, and I get actually annoyed when my wife does because then she buys things
Yeah,
that
exactly.
I don't want in the house because I don't have the temptation, it's hard for me to stop the temptation from eating that. I've gotten better though. I've gotten better at resisting certain things, like especially like sweet things and sugars and things like that. I've gotten better with that over the last year and a half now, 2 years. So, but still, I get annoyed when she comes home with like things that I would never want to buy anymore. Like, oh man, now I have to like work harder to sort of avoid this.
Yeah,
I know it's harder because like I share the house with, of course, three other people, my wife, my two kids. So, I can't just like shop for myself only. So I still am aware with that. So it's difficult, but like I definitely prefer to be more in control of that. That way I don't have the same sort of temptations. It's yeah. So like I definitely struggle with that as well. Also, like sometimes, like I like avoiding certain things that I don't want to do, like certain maintenance things in the house. Oh, it's not a big deal. It's not broke, so why fix it? Type of deal. So yeah, it's because the temptation just to like relax and not do stuff kind of like goes through instead. The temptation just to succumb to you know mindless entertainment rather than to actually fixing problems that might need to be done. So things like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And something it's the it's unfortunately people rely on that addiction,
Hmm.
rely on it because they're too afraid of what is lurking in their mind that's
Hmm.
responsible for the temptation, that's responsible for their apathy to put down what they're doing and just pick up a journal and just write down their thoughts and just like see where that takes them.
Hmm.
That's how I did it. Just started writing. That's
Yeah.
right, and it's not anyone could do it. Anyone could do it. It doesn't have to be like some fancy, like dude, I barely passed high school.
Mhm.
You know, like I don't have a degree. I don't have college diploma. I don't.
Hmm.
Okay, I mean, I think I had a natural talent for writing. I had that from going for me, but I didn't. You know, like what was it? 2016. I spent 5 years
Mhm.
writing, right? And it's just practice, like anything. Like like you know as good as anyone else, right? It just takes practice. You know, especially being a teacher, especially been a coach,
Mhm.
been a player. That's another thing we have in common. We've played soccer.
Yeah.
We like soccer. So it really, it's really, it's like it's a curriculum in a way. You're documenting yourself, and along the way, you're you're diagnosing what what may or may not benefit you, and you decide, well, this doesn't benefit me, but if I do this, I'm gonna start eating like mad because it's gonna stress me the fuck out. Or I, I, there's plenty of other examples I can't think of them, but that's the thing. That's the thing I'm talking about. Is mentally we're eating to escape what our mind is happy to keep this tango going on and on and on because the mind.
I, yeah, I was gonna say absolutely because like nowadays we don't like it's not really true, but like for everyone, but for people who have like enough means like like we do here, like we don't necessarily eat to necessarily survive. We eat for pleasure, you know. Like we have the luxury of like turning down certain foods, because we have choices at our disposal. Like we don't like we do eat, of course, because we have to, but we eat based on luxury more than actual need. Like we would go out for dinner or get takeout and things like that, and things that we enjoy. So totally, 100%. It's definitely different. So it's a lot easier to succumb to temptations when it's so abundant and you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from.
Yeah, it's and the thing. Food is the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's very instinctual to eat, right? It's very instinctual to eat, but it's not limited to food. It's
Hmm.
you because you could be addicted to anything.
Yeah.
You know the world of YouTube and whatever you want to go down those paths on the deep dark side of the internet, what people are into.
Hmm.
That's a fun factory with no limits.
Hmm.
And if you express those in the world, you might connect with people that are just as ill as you are.
Hmm.
And um, you know, no judgment there, I guess, as long as it's not illegal. But it's the same. It's the same. It's the same temptation. It's the same thing. It's just manifesting in unique ways. In way to
Hmm.
tailor it tailors itself to you. So at the end of the day, whether you succumb to it or you hold back, it knows that you're suffering. You either succumb to it and you pleasure, but you're going to suffer later, or you abstain, but it knows you're suffering. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
So um, this this article is not. This is like the first one. So
Mhm.
it was pretty tame. Just so you know, it was a
Hmm.
tame one. I can't remember. I'll have to look, but maybe three or four or five in. Then you start to see the metamorphosis from becoming an atheist back to, let's say, Christian, even though I'm
Hmm.
not a Christian. So then that's when you'll see the change. So I still it's not about making this a debate. It's about, look, these are things I see which I think you cannot. Can you address
Hmm.
them? Can you address them in a way that maybe we'll have some common ground?
Yeah.
So we're up 55 minutes. That's probably a good place to start.
Okay. Yeah.
This was fun. This is my first podcast that I've done.
Yeah, definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting to try to decipher a lot of your writings. I know that sometimes it's hard to decipher or to wrap around because you often do sort of write in riddles and things like that. So it takes some time to us to really sort of go through it. So this is actually really good in a way to allow people to understand your writing better through my ways of trying to explain it. And who knows, other people might have completely different interpretations of different ideas, and that's I guess the whole point. So absolutely, it's great.
Yeah. So great. So let's leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll arrange for another time. We'll go through as many articles as you want.
Okay.
And then we'll just see how that goes.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This is what's the name of my podcast?
It was let me
it's good versus good. Good versus good.
That's it right here. Good versus good.
I'm pretty proud of that logo. I did it in Photoshop, and I was like, yeah, I don't mind that.
No, it works. It's the puzzle pieces as they go together. Common ground.
Yeah. Right. So anyways, thanks everyone for watching. I'm waving. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, take care.
Ciao.